it's Paige Hamilton from Helmet. You're listening to Thunder Underground.
Welcome to episode 298 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent and Jason here as always. And this week, we've got a great one. I say that sometimes, but this time it's truly true because Paige Hamilton is here for almost an hour of talk about Helmet and a lot of other stuff.
Exactly.
And that's definitely someone that I know I've wanted to have on this podcast since we started it. It was one of those kind of, when we started this podcast, far-fetched dreams. And now here we are almost 300 episodes later, making it happen.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I don't know the inner workings of how you get all these guys. I mean, I kind of do. But for me, it was kind of out of the blue. Because I think it was just kind of a last minute.
Well,
because it's like I kind of knew what we had coming down, and then all of a sudden I got a text. Guess what? Like, what?
Right.
Where did this come from? I didn't know you were working on this.
Yeah, well, I got to give a shout out here to Michael Thrasher.
Right.
Our good buddy Michael Thrasher. Helmet has been one of his favorite bands since we were young.
For sure.
And about a month ago, we recorded this about a month ago, so probably about a month and a half ago, me and him were working an event. We were driving. He's like, why haven't you ever had Paige Hamilton on your podcast? And I said, well, believe it or not, a couple years ago, whenever Helmet and Prong were on tour,
right,
they came through Tulsa, and I sent in a request for both Tommy Victor and Paige Hamilton.
Right.
We got the Tommy Victor interview, but then Paige Hamilton's PR replied, and, they were really cool and said, unfortunately, that's a long drive that day from San Antonio. I don't think they'll make it in time. But they gave us photo passes and everything. Yeah. They were pretty accommodating. They said, just hit us up in the future. And so I just hit them back up in the future. It's been, it's been a year and a half since then, or no, 2.5 years.
A couple years later, but we got it.
It's okay. The cool thing about it is, had we done it that day, it would have been a 20-minute interview, 20, 30 minutes at that. And, here we got to talk to him on Skype. So we got nearly an hour.
An hour.
Yeah.
And he was on the Van Halen deal.
Right.
So, I mean, it really works out.
But yeah, all this with Paige Hamilton coming up, and we're going to talk about a new band on the scene called ACDC.
Right, yeah.
They got their debut album coming out.
They're really turning heads, I hear.
Yeah. Yeah, these days that doesn't happen as much anymore. You don't get a lot of buzz on one new band, but here it's happening with this one.
Exactly.
So we're going to talk about that. But first, we need to let you know, as always, we're sponsored by a few places, one of them being Hella Hot Sauce. It's a hot sauce company based out of the San Francisco Bay Area. They do small batch artisan hot sauces, and you can see their selection on their website, HellaHotHotSauce.com. You can also follow them on their socials. Facebook and Instagram are both at Hella Hot Sauce. They do collaborations. They've got one with Ghoul called Brain Jerk, and they've got one with Florida Frank from Hatebreed called Florida Frank's Florida Heat. We've got some of that. It's great tasting, but it'll clean your insides out.
Kidding.
If you get a little too much of it.
Yeah. If you're constipated, you don't need to go. You don't need to go to the store and get any kind of medicine. Just get some of Florida Frank's Florida Heat.
And we don't mean that negatively.
No.
This is good. I mean, it's great flavor.
Clean you the hell out.
Yeah, absolutely. So
in the best way.
Yeah. So check all those out at HellaHotHotSauce.com, and of course, tell them Thunder Underground sent you. If you're on the West Coast, by the way, you can pick them up in stores. So do that. MedFarm is a dispensary located in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, 24683 East Highway 51. You can see their entire selection of products at leafly.com. Check out their website, medfarmok.com, and their socials, MedFarmOK on Instagram and MedFarm on Facebook. That's PHARM. They're always running specials on there. They also have an ongoing special, which is if you mention Thunder Underground, they'll give you 10% off your first order. So a huge thank you to them for that. And they've got a drive-thru. So if you call ahead or text ahead, you can fly right up there and get your product and get on your way. The most important thing is that nearly a third of their profits, 30% of it, is going to build no-kill animal shelters, which is a massive thing that not just any dispensary, most any business doesn't do stuff like that. So they're giving away nearly a third of what they're making to an amazing cause. So wherever you're at in the Tulsa area, get over to MedFarm and mention Thunder Underground. Sunset Tattoo. Tattoo shop located right in the heart of Midtown Tulsa. Their tattoos are done good and proper. They're state licensed. They are mother approved. Jake and his crew have over 25 years of experience. They do a ton of great work. If you don't believe my words, get on their Facebook or their Instagram at Sunset Tattoo Tulsa, and then you can see pictures to get proof that way. Both of us know people that have had work by Jake done. We know that it's done, like you said, good and proper, and it looks good. So get over there, give them a shout, have a consultation to talk about what work you need to get done, and tell them Thunder Underground sent you. Finally, DEB Concerts is a promoter based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Keeps bringing some great acts to the downtown Tulsa area, like the Ideal Ballroom, the BOK Center, and they also book the Roadhouse stage every year at Rocklahoma. Coming up here on December 12th, Lita Ford will return to the Ideal Ballroom, but this will be a socially distanced acoustic show, which is something different from Lita, so very cool. She'll be playing acoustically with Patrick Kennison, and Palandria will also be playing acoustic opening that show, and Eddie Trunk will be hosting that show. So we got a lot of names there. If you're in the Oklahoma area, get over there on December 12th to check that one out. And coming up in a few months, recently announced, April 10th, downtown Tulsa, in the streets in front of Ideal Ballroom, Queensryche, Lita Ford, Nita Strauss, and the reunited all original members of the Bullet Boys. Very, very, very cool lineup right there, I think. What do you think?
That's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Queensryche with Todd LaTorre is amazing, by the way.
Yes, they're great.
And really looking forward to seeing Nita Strauss solo. There's another one for you guys to check out. DEBconcerts.com is where all the ticket info's at. You can also be kept up to date on any future announcements and any reschedules of any of the postponed stuff. And of course, we'll keep you up to date right here on our podcast as well. So huge thank you to DEB Concerts. All right. Like we mentioned a few minutes ago, ACDC has a brand new album out. First new album in 6 years.
Yeah. Yes.
Rock or Bust came out in 2014. So this was, well, slightly longer than, because last time, I guess, from Black Ice to Rock or Bust was 5 years. And this probably would have been 5 years if it wasn't for the pandemic, right?
Yeah. It would have been, yeah, definitely.
But anyway, so this album reportedly was done, was it almost 2 years ago? Or like within the past 2 years or something, and they've been sitting on it. And, you know, because there was a lot of rumors and stuff floating around that were never confirmed by ACDC, because they don't confirm shit because they're ACDC and they don't have to.
Yeah, right.
But there were pictures of Brian and Phil in Vancouver with the other guys, so everybody knew something was happening.
Yeah, back in the band. Yeah.
Or as a pun would be to say, they're back in black.
Right.
Well, this album came out this past week, actually, this past Friday the 13th. I didn't look at what number it was. Do you know off the top of your head?
No, huh?
No. Doesn't matter. AC/DC has a ton of albums with Brian Johnson and a ton with Bon Scott. And for the most part, they're all excellent. I mean, like every band, there's a few that you might skip through, but I can guarantee you won't skip through this motherfucker.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And another thing to point out, we're talking about AC/DC on this episode with Paige Hamilton of Helmet, and Paige Hamilton has stated before that AC/DC is his favorite band.
So there you go.
So this,
and I get that in a way.
All ties together perfectly.
Right.
Yeah. I know Florida Frank, who we mentioned earlier, with Florida Frank's Florida Heat, has been on this podcast, and I know he's a massive fan of AC/DC as well. Right. But hell, if you love rock music and you're not a fan of AC/DC,
then fuck you.
I fear there's a problem with you.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Just right off the bat, we heard Shot in the Dark, and then we heard Realize, leading up to the album. Both those songs are excellent. We have already talked about both those.
Yeah.
And we were both talked about how we were more pumped for this album based off of those two tracks than we have been maybe before Black Ice or Rock or Bust came out.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to make a statement. Take this for what you will. Like I said when we were talking a little bit earlier before we recorded this, it could just be me in the moment of enjoying this new album from AC/DC.
Exactly.
But I think this is their best album since The Razor's Edge in 1990.
Well,
30 years later. I know Ballbreaker had great stuff. Black Ice had great stuff. But this, to me, from start to finish, all 12 tracks.
Yeah. No.
All killer, no filler.
I get that. And really, I mean, I get it. And you're right. I love, it's just like we said, like we talked earlier, I love Black Ice. I fucking love that record. Only thing that lacks that Power Up makes up for is the streamlined of it. The streamlined vibe of it. You know, I think Black Ice, there's like fucking 15 fucking songs or some shit. And this one is just more to the point. But I mean, Black Ice is great. But so I kind of see how this could probably be the best record since, The Razor's Edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. Where does, and then, you talk about a Ballbreaker with Stiff Upper Lip after Ballbreaker.
Yeah. Because Ballbreaker was the first album after Razor's Edge, I believe.
That's right.
95.
And Stiff Upper Lip wasn't bad either.
Right.
Well, none of them are bad. See, that's the thing. But no, this is a great fucking record, and it's just more focused. For me, I love Rejection.
Yeah.
I love Demon Fire. Those are standouts to me. And then, of course, Through the Mists of Time, that's kind of your kind of Stormy Mayday of Power Up. It's the one that's a little different, but still AC/DC.
Yeah.
But that fucking song rules too. So it's like, it's insane because you want to talk about all this shit coming out and you want to have a slant, you want to have your point and your angle, but fuck man, it's hard with AC/DC because it just never wavers. It never weakens.
Yeah. And
you run out of adjectives because it doesn't matter if it's 1974 or 2020. AC/DC is always solid, and they're always everything you think they are, and they're always everything that you describe them as.
Right.
So that's...
And, I think we kind of mentioned on the last one, is they always don't sound dated, even though their sound is dated technically. They don't sound that. They still, this music to me just sounds as important as it did 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah. Right. And it's like anybody else could sound, another band could do the sound. You'd be like, yeah, fuck you.
Right.
AC/DC could do this. It's like, fuck yeah.
Right.
Not fuck you, fuck yeah. So it's just one of that's the rare air. Sorry to sound stupid, but that's kind of that's the space that they fill and they possess.
Yeah.
And you don't see it very often.
No.
So it's great when it happens.
Right. To me, my two favorite tracks on this album are Kick You When You're Down and Through the Mist of Time.
Okay.
And I could talk about Through the Mist of Time for 10 minutes probably.
Well,
But
I woke up this morning. Was it this morning or no? I think it was I woke up yesterday morning and I had a text from you that was all it said was Through the Mist of Time, motherfucker. And right. I'm like, well, Trent's drinking again.
Well, this song at its core sounds like an 80s pop song.
Yeah.
With AC/DC sprinkled on top of it.
Right.
And it's freaking amazing. Mm-hmm. It's like so many bands like AC/DC. I mean, there's not bands like AC/DC, but so many hard rock bands from years past could put out a song like this and probably 75, 85% of them are going to sound like a dumb fuck.
Yeah.
But AC/DC puts it out and it just sounds freaking amazing to me. I just can't explain it. It's just it's the least AC/DC song on the album, but could be my favorite one. And maybe that's going to say something about we're always well, you know what you're going to get, but then you get something that's a little different, like you said about Stormy Mayday or whatever. But just to me, that pop feel of it just was really, really cool. And then, but most of the tracks on here just have that tried and true AC/DC double guitar stomp and that amazing rhythm section. And then Brian Johnson doing his unmistakable vocals on top of it. And that's what you get throughout this thing. And Witch's Spell is another amazing song.
Yeah.
Actually posted this on our Facebook and said, what's your favorite track? And I know we had responses. Someone said Shot in the Dark. Someone said Witch's Spell. Someone said Demon Fire. Someone said Code Red. I remember, it's kind of like we said, this album from start to finish, you're not going to find a song you don't like if you like ACDC.
Across the board.
Yeah. And that's why they're one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time.
Definitely.
With that being said, if you haven't heard Power Up yet, pull your head out your ass and listen to the Power Up right now.
Exactly.
Oh, not right now, in about an hour from now.
Right. Listen to us first. Okay?
Yeah. Listen to us and Paige Hamilton here in just a bit. But speaking of that, Paige Hamilton of Helmet was our guest here on this episode, and we got to talk to him, man, about what all did we talk about? We talked about Helmet. I believe we talked about ACDC because I think we'd even mentioned Shot in the Dark, and it had just came out.
Right. And
he said he hadn't heard it yet, so hopefully by now he's got this full album. Check it out. Talked about Van Halen. Talked about his guitar lessons, jazz. That's the thing about Paige Hamilton. This guy is a musician's musician. You know, he does things that a lot of guys can't do, and he does them all well. And Helmet, you know, keeps putting out great music. Their album that came out 2016, okay, Dead to the World, is a great album as well. But if you're listening to this because you love Helmet, you know that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's quit rambling and just let Paige Hamilton do some rambling. Here's Paige Hamilton of Helmet. All right, well, the first thing I kind of wanted to jump into is I saw a while back that you're doing guitar lessons now via Skype. Is that something that you like accept all levels, or is it mainly like for people that are already established, or how does that work?
I have a 9-year-old who's was a total beginner. I have an 11-year-old who is going to be a great shredder, and I have dudes that are Helmet fans and have bruises and bumps and scars from pits. And they're like, you know, married with kids, and so all comers, all levels. It's really fun. I mean, I've been asked for years to do lessons, and I haven't really done it since college, you know, and since I lived in New York when I taught at this school in Chinatown for a little while, and it's kind of forced me to step back and look at the guitar in a different way. How do you communicate this? How do I get someone to understand this? You know what I mean? In fact, my one of my students is my nephew, and he's got acoustic. He likes to strum along and play songs and stuff. And he said, "Do you think I should use a thumb pick?" Because he's just using his fingers, and he's got he's like, "I have these fleshy, fatty fingers, and they don't really seem to work." And I said, "Yeah, let's get a thumb pick." So I had to bust out a thumb pick and kind of get on YouTube and go like, "Yeah, how do you do this again?" And and it's like I don't know, tying your fingers together or something. And it's forcing me to kind of explore other things. So I'm like watching all these Tommy Emmanuel and you know, Jerry Reed videos and stuff. It's really cool.
So I mean, that's something that even though you're getting paid to help someone else, in a way it's helping you.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I'm also doing a songwriting class with School of Rock. I had done an interview with the Baldwin St. Louis school, and they said, "Hey, would you be into doing one for the national school?" I said, "Of course." And they said, "God, we're getting all these people asking about you. Would you be into doing a class?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm home. Have plenty of time on my hands." And, you know, I'm juggling like 12 things right now, but they're all like I don't know, I might spend a day on a song for a band in Australia, or doing some recording and writing with Thomas Lang for his music school, 9 Beats, that's opening up whenever COVID passes. And it's good. I mean, I could, I guess, sit on my rear and just keep practicing guitar and writing and stuff, but there's something about having a little bit of a schedule for me, for some reason, really helps get me kind of motivated. So it's like, I know if I have a lesson, 3 lessons from 12 to 5, then I can take a break and then do some of my own work after that, and it's unfortunately, when you have a band, you kind of have this built-in workload, like, okay, we're going to do this tour coming up, so we need to rehearse, or I'm going to do an album, so I need to write, or whatever it is. And for as I've gotten older, I'm less bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about getting up and practicing for 12 hours.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I don't know, man. I could drink beer and watch baseball and then take a nap, which is kind of pitiful, but
Hey, that works for me.
Yeah, There's there's a balance. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like obviously it's just a strange time. We had such a great 2 years in Helmet, and then we had this incredibly busy year lined up for 2020. And I just heard today that the shows from April, May that we moved to November, that we moved to July 2021 might be moved to the end of the year next year or the beginning of 2022. So
Wow.
it's a long time to be doing nothing, and so it's kind of forced me to be creative. And I mean, the good news is that obviously I went to school and got my degree in classical and jazz guitar, and then kept going because I'm a nerd, and got my master's in jazz, and so I have a lot of useless information bouncing around in my head, and I actually love it. Howard Roberts, who was my mentor's mentor and kind of our grand master, who started GIT, which is now MI, Musicians Institute, he had that Super Chops program that I sort of adapted to in my instructional DVD, and his like sonic shapes. Those are Howard and Gary Hagberg ideas, the things that I'm passing on to people, and it's fun. It's actually been really fun, and I'm doing things like I have two dear a very dear friend back east who's gives guitar lessons for a living, and he and the guitar player in his band, Leash Lord, we get together, we do like geek outs on a house party, and so he said, look, I learned that you can these 3-note diminished 7th chord arpeggios. It's really cool. And it's like, oh wow. So I sent them was it A flat 7, flat 5, A flat 7 sharp 11, whatever arpeggios that you can either play with 1 3 2 4 or 1 3 1 3 1 3 1 3 1 3 all the way up the neck, and it's making me sort of turn the instrument inside out, and and I'm kind of teaching myself this finger picking stuff. I mean, I could finger pick half-ass like most guitar players, but really digging in a little bit and going like, okay, what the heck is Merle Travis doing here?
Right.
And, it's phenomenal. It's a whole nother world of music, and I'm really loving it. I miss the road. Don't get me wrong. I can't wait to get back on the road. But I decided with the lessons is something that I could do if there are students that want to continue. If we play 6 days a week and I have a day off, I don't mind spending 2 hours in my hotel room and giving a couple of lessons so they can keep learning and keep moving forward. So I don't want to abandon them. Say like, okay, thanks a lot. See ya.
Yeah. Teaching guitar is one thing. When you talked about the songwriting workshops, I mean, talk about trying to show somebody that skill set of songwriting. And it seems like on one hand, you would want to like be creative and just tell the person, do what you feel. But on the other hand, there probably is a rule or two you have to follow.
Yeah, and it could be my rules. They could be rules in general. It could be just hints and tips. And I think one thing I'm finding out because this class's kids is they don't have confidence, a lot of them, and they're afraid to read their words. They're afraid. I said, you know what? I've been writing songs for 1.5 million years. I'm 60 years old, and I still bring a song in, and I'm nervous. And I said, don't feel alone. Tennessee Williams, after he'd written these incredible plays, still felt like he was a farce. And Nick Cave talks about that. Like, can I really write songs? And so it's like, so that's one aspect of it. And what I preach in my guitar lessons and songwriting is, if you don't do it, you're not going to get good at it. So if you're going to sit around and worry about it, and I have this friend of mine, and she's in Houston, and she's always talking about wants to do this, wants to do that, and then she's got an excuse for everything why she's not doing it. And I want to say to her, the reason you suck is because all you do is talk about what you think you could do. You know, it's like, if you fucking think you can do it, then do it. And
Yeah.
Howard Roberts said, used to say, he's like, if you want to learn, if you're going to learn how to wrestle alligators, you got to get in and wrestle the alligator. That's it. Period. I had a conversation with a friend of mine last night who's taking acting classes, and she came to this revelation at the age of 36. I just have to do it, and I go, yeah. You can sit here and hum and haw and wonder why you're not getting your due or whatever. And with songwriting, having a little bit of having some habits. For example, you have a pen and a pad by your bed. You have a pen and a pad in your car. You have a pen and a pad next to the television set. Commercials, TV. I mean, I've gotten so much inspiration from TV commercials, from billboard. There was the billboard in Sacramento. I'm walking to get coffee after a gig the next morning, and I think it was like Sacram. I was like, God damn it. Sacramento beauty has arrived, or and it's like something. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. It was about this: get your facial hair removed, ladies. And these and then if I drive from California to Oregon, there are always a good 3 or 4 billboards that are telling us we're going to burn in hell and you got to find Jesus. And so those are always interesting and exciting. And it's all, I kind of try to impress upon them. Inspiration is in everything, and it's how you look at it and where you look at it. And you can take a subject as boring as waking up in the morning, like John Lennon did, and say, when I wake up early in the morning, I lift my head, I'm still yawning, and I'm in the middle of a dream, I stay in bed, I float upstream. And he wrote this amazing song about, leave me alone, man. I'm only sleeping, and it's it's how you look at the world. And one thing that I also try to impress upon them is we are artists. We are really lucky. We're in this exclusive little club that we have this thing, this music thing that is a universal language. We don't have to speak. Helmet played in 60 countries in the last 30 years, at least. And we don't have to speak a common, language, because we have music, and music communicates on another level. And I think musicians tend to be, in my experience, some of the smarter, more compassionate, more understanding, open-minded people in the world, because we have this thing that we love so much that takes us out of the boring physical existence of, I woke up, I made coffee, I took a dump, and I went to work, And people that want to post all day on Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff about, like, look, I'm eating a donut and listening to, whatever, Thin Lizzy. I'm like, I guess that's interesting. I don't know, man. Like, we have built-in kind of excitement and a built-in, it's an intellectual, it's a spiritual, exercise. Music is this thing, we can't really describe it, but we always try, and that's positive, that's constructive, because you're digging into yourself, you're digging into this place that you don't really understand. You want to understand it, you never will completely, but then there's music analysis. Okay, here I have my master's degree in jazz guitar, but I've learned more from Wes Montgomery, who didn't read a note of music, than any guitar player that ever lived, and it's so you go, like, he's seeing these connections, and also on the guitar fretboard, it's so beautiful, these kind of, I call them the sonic shapes from Howard and Gary, but they're almost like constellations, stars. This way these notes are arranged, you see these shapes, and it's like I'm always discovering a new shape and a new way to connect these two notes, or to get from this chord to that chord, and the possibilities are really endless. And I love when people say, oh, like, guitar is dead, rock is dead, and like, well, it's like, God, that must be an awful feeling for you, because I've been playing since I was 17, and I'm 60, and every day I get up and I'm like, whoa, oh my God, this is incredible. Like, why didn't I think of that 30 years ago or whatever, and it's so it's I don't know, COVID is also giving us all a lot of times time to sit around and, be inside and sort of, people are talking about, have you been really, productive? And I'm like, God, really, like, I don't think so. I mean, I could be a lot more productive, but, you do what you can. And there's also the kind of global, kind of stress that we all are experiencing, and not, our livelihoods are threatened, and, just our way of life, everything that we knew. And it sort of makes you, sit back. If it doesn't, you're sort of complete rube, but sit back and count your blessings and go, I can't take anything for granted. I got to keep working and doing what I love. And also, it's also do nice things for people, and it's, I think that you were seeing a lot of selfishness too, and that's, in Los Angeles anyway, people are driving like they own the road, and that everybody else is just in the way, because the roads are not as packed as they usually are. So someone's driving, literally 90 miles an hour and passing you on all sides, and weaving in and out. I had that happen to me several times. I went to pick up some guitars today in my locker, and it was just, I fear for my life. I'm like, oh my God, man, calm down. Crazy, right?
Yeah. Playing to what you said earlier, I think in a pandemic or no pandemic, when it comes to rock, I think there's always something new to discover. There's always, no matter how old a band is, there's always something out there I haven't heard.
100%. It's always going to be that way. I mean,
yeah,
there are very few people are going to come along like Jimi Hendrix and flip the entire world upside down in a life that spanned 27 years. It's just not going to happen again. I mean, Eddie Van Halen came along and look what he did. And like you can still look. I can still remember the first moment I heard that I'm like, what the fuck? Like, because I wasn't familiar with finger tapping or any of that stuff, and this fluid kind of, it's almost non-guitaristic. It's so musical, it's just like, wow, like this is just completely looking at the instrument in a different way. And that's uncommon. Most of us, we get on the path and get knocked off from time to time, but if you're a musician and that's your love, then you get back up on the path. And so many of my friends, I think the thing with rock, and people talk about that, is so many of my friends that are rich and famous rock stars, they got, I think they got enamored with all the trappings, and that sort of, they lost their lust or love for what got them into it in the first place, unless they wanted to be rich and famous in the first place. That was never that's not what I, got excited about when I heard Black Dog. I wasn't like, I want to be rich and famous. I was like, I was like, holy shit, where does this take me? It takes me to this mysterious other world that I don't understand, and I love it. I love that out of body, out of mind experience that I got when I was 15 when I first heard that, and that's never, there's no reason for that to ever go away. I feel bad for people that say that I'm burned out, and that's part of also what I preach in my lessons in songwriting is the way you don't burn out is these are some building blocks, musical building blocks. You get a foundation, so it's not just taking licks off Sabbath records or whatever. That's a great thing to do, but if you know how chords are constructed, I'm just writing them out of C scale and go, here are triads, here are seventh chords, and we can extend these up further, but start there, and here's how the fretboard connects with this particular pattern. This is called an A minor C major pentatonic, and you have 5 positions. These fingerings are suggestions. The more you play, the more you're going to discover fingerings that work for you. And sometimes, here's 3 ways to play an open position A chord. Well, if I'm going to play Highway to Hell, I'm going to play a bar. If I'm going to play Bowie Strum Along, I'm going to play it like Bowie played it. He played it with 3 fingers, and then he moved it up a whole step and played a B chord, like that with the root on the, 5th string, 2nd fret, and that's I ask him about it, and I'm like, that's kind of like a weird way to play that. And he's like, oh, I'm an old folky. You know, he was an old folk strummy guy, you know, and that was one of his many disciplines. But, you know, it to me, if you have these building blocks and you realize that there's no quick fix, easy answer. Since I've been teaching, I've just scour the internet and get on these YouTube things, and I watch different teachers. And there's so many teachers out there giving lessons. Some are great, some are just awful. And these ones that say you don't need to, you know, I'm just going to teach you this 5-note pattern and you're going to be able to improvise. It's like, well, this 5-note pattern is part of an A minor pentatonic scale. Why not just learn the fucking A minor pentatonic scale and know where it comes from? You know, is it too much? It's 5 notes also. You know, you just can play it in, you know, a couple of octaves in one position without even moving your hand or the guitar. You know, it's not really that complicated, and you know, and you can expand that for the rest of your life. Then you hear Mike Stern, and he's playing, you know, the minor pentatonic, you know, but sliding up, you know, on the flat 5 and playing the minor pentatonic a half step up, leaving the key, coming back to the key, and you're like, whoa, okay, it's the same minor pentatonic scale that Clapton used in While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Angus used in Highway to Hell, Jimmy used, you know, obviously with the F natural for the F chord in Stairway to Heaven solo. Joe Walsh used in Funk 49. What's the other? A Tom Petty Breakdown is C major pentatonic. My Girl, you know, same exact, you know. This is an incredibly useful bit of information, people. You know, why not learn it? Because I guarantee you're gonna get some use out of it. And I was like, we did when I did the Brit Guitar Festival thing a couple of years ago. They wanted to do While My Guitar Gently Weeps, so I learned it, and I started. And I was doing a couple of clinics for him, and I started uncovering all these. I was like, A minor pentatonic, here we go. Wow, like. So many classic masterpieces have been written using that very scale in that very position, no less. You know, and so it's you know, of course, if that's all you do and you just learn those licks off those records and you don't know what else to do with it, maybe you'll burn out. But I don't know. I feel like there's a mountain of information, and I feel more like Miles Davis, you know, who said, God, I wake up and I still have something new I thought about, and how am I going to do this, you know, up until the day he died. And that's how I feel, you know.
Well, kind of shifting to Helmet for a minute. It's been a few years since Dead to the World came out, and I thought that was a great album, and the tour with Prong was great. You got to catch that. So, like, looking back on that album now and kind of era, like, how do you feel it fits in Helmet's legacy?
Love playing those songs live, man. And that's sort of to me an indication of whether the songs worked or not. Because I've noticed over all these years, if I'm playing something, we played things that were pre-Strap It On the 30 by 30 by 30 tour, which included a song called Taken. So Taken in Your Head, which Your Head was the original B-side to Unsung 7-inch on AMREP. So those are early, very early songs, and then to play something off the last album and have them all work together, yet keep this set flowing forward without feeling, without being redundant, you know, because you can rewrite your old songs, or you can, you know, to take what you've learned over writing those songs and expand your horizons a little bit. And that means I've lived a little bit more life since then. So I wrote this song. I've learned a little more guitar since then. So that influenced this song. But I love the Helmet format. I love the drop tune, and a 4-piece band. You know, I now have 4 guys that sing instead of just 1. So I will take advantage of that, which is fun. And, I love playing the album. It's really, it's fun though. And I've wanted to do an album for a couple of years, a new album, but we're sort of at the mercy of the record label. And I talked to my manager, like, hey, can we go to another label? They're not stepping up, and labels are having a hard time figuring out how they make money off of album sales. And I'm sympathetic. I understand that, but I have a deal with them, and I'm supposed to. So what we're doing is right now is I also have a live album. We have a live album on the deal, so we're going to release excuse me, a CBGB show from '90 and a Big Day Out show from I think '92, something like that. The first time we played Australia, '93. It had to be maybe '93. It was post Meantime, pre Betty. And then the CB show that we didn't have an album out yet. Those were the very early songs like Impressionable, which was an AMREP 7-inch. Can't remember what else is on the one song. Didn't have a title, and turned it into an intro to Impressionable. And we did Sinatra and Murder. So there were songs that were going to be on Strap It On. So yeah, but we're releasing those 2 live EPs, and then we did all these cover songs during the recording of Debt to the World, and it was kind of like we're going to release them. Then somebody at the management office screwed up, so that set us back a year. It was like all this one thing after another. So now we're finding the labels like, oh, we'd like to be involved in that. We'll release those because I've had the artwork done. They've been mixed. And one song was mastered, mixed by Jay Baumgartner and mastered by Howie during the Dead to the World mixing and mastering sessions. So I've had them ready to go. It's just kind of like I understand. I mean, the music business is looking for instant hit, instant gratification. And we put this out like Taylor Swift, and she gets million. She puts $1 million in our pockets on day 2. And Helmet. That's not Helmet. But it's nice to have our stuff out there to kind of expand the catalog, because I feel good about the catalog that we've built, over all these years. I'm like, Tommy, speaking of Prong, Tommy Victor said to me, man, he's like, I just admire the fact that you never were knocked off your path. You never sold out and tried to fit in and tried to do something. He said, when Prong signed to our major label, he said, I thought I got to write something that's going to be a hit, flavor of the month. And I'm not familiar with the music that they did then, but Tommy was telling me, he's like, he wasn't, he's not happy with it in retrospect. And that meant a lot to me, because you kind of suffer in many ways if you don't have write big hit songs or whatever. But I just was like, I always thought you should do something a little different with each album and keep it about the music, keep it about, as I say, you're expanding your vocabulary, musical vocabulary, and your literary vocabulary, and everything as you grow as a human being. And as long as I'm physically capable of performing these songs, I'll do it. And I have more fun now than ever because we have so many songs to choose from. So it's a blast, really fun.
Speaking of Tommy Victor and CBGBs, we had him on the podcast, and he mentioned when he was the sound guy there, like working with you guys in the early days.
Yeah, he was there when we auditioned. Mike from Prong, Mike Kirkland, was the door guy, and Tommy was the front of house guy. And I still have them, these cool Marshall cabinets. They're kind of mini. It's a mini stack, a 50-watt. It's not a full-size Marshall stack. So it's like a 410 and a 212 bottom. Tommy was just punching the clock, and I get it. And he put the mic, in like where there's no speaker and wood next to the wood. I never gave him shit for that, actually. I might have. But I moved. I'm like, oh yeah, the speaker's actually right here, so I moved the mic. But he mixed us, and he and Mike were like, fuck, man. They have a little book at CBGB's that on audition night you would write notes about each band, and they were like, book this band immediately. They would work well with Cop Shoot Cop, and I can't remember what other band they mentioned, like maybe Unsane or something, because those bands were already started. And so they booked us, and we played there pretty much monthly. And that's kind of how we built everything up. We got better and built. People started coming. And we were always, with CBs and the New York scene, like I think any scene, sometimes bands get the ego, and they turn it into a marching band competition. And I never saw music as a competition. I saw it as a means to sort of share and be part of, as I said, this community that's really fortunate. You know, we're musicians, and so I just told Louise and Hilly, I'm like, yeah, put us on whenever you want. We'll go first. We don't care. And bands were, arguing about who should play at midnight, which was the headline slot, and who should play at this time. And I'm like, we don't fucking care. Put us on first. And so the three kids that showed up at our first couple of shows, we told another three kids, who told another three kids, and before you knew it, they had to put us in the headline slot. And we I was really confident. I mean, I felt like, because we rehearsed religiously, and I felt like we were going to mop the floor with any band. So we'll play with anyone, And it's funny. John Moore from Tar said once to me, he's a huge Albini fan, Jesus Lizard fan, as I am as well, Big Black and Rape Man in anyway, and Jesus Lizard. He said, "Oh man, I can't believe you guys are taking Jesus Lizard out on tour. This is so hard to go on after that." And I'm like, "Oh man, it's going to be amazing." I say, and I never felt intimidated to have someone open or to open for someone. Ever. I don't, I mean, we've been booed for, at Guns N' Roses, and I completely understand why Guns N' Roses wouldn't want to hear, 4 minutes of feedback with at the end of Tick, and the more they hated it, the longer I did it. So, we're not trying to please everybody, but you cannot. John Stanier used to say this. You might not like what we do, but you cannot come to our show and say we suck, because we definitely don't suck, And I thought that was so funny, It's like, and I always said, hey, if Michael Jackson would have sold a lot more records if everyone loved what he does, but apparently they don't, because he only sold like 1 billion or whatever,
Right.
I mean, not everybody, especially with this fucking thumbs up, thumbs down shit, and every little prick has an opinion about stuff, and I'm just like, I've seen people give thumbs down to like Jaco Pastorius, and you're like,
yeah,
you're like, what?
How's that possible?
Are you just fucking stupid? Or I mean, the answer is probably yeah, and they probably really suck, and it's just like everybody's a fucking critic, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck what some punk says about my band. Go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? We've stuck to our guns for 31 years, and we're gonna do it till I drop dead. So it's like, and the Helmet fans. I gotta say, people have asked me, why do you think the band's been able to tour the world for so long and do this and continue? I was like, for that very reason. People know that what they see is what they get. They're gonna come to the show. We're gonna play Helmet songs. I'm not gonna suddenly come out and fucking lime green spandex and light candles on stage and fucking strum acoustic songs. I mean, I might whip out one of these finger picking songs I'm learning someday. I don't know. If I can ever get Cannonball down or Strutting by Jerry Reed, I'd be fucking stoked. There's a drop D masterpiece, right?
Right.
But it's just, you just do what you do, and some people are gonna get it. I've had people also. I can't remember the name of the band, unfortunately, but I had on the Warped Tour heard a couple of great stories from bands that were. I asked one guy, like, well, why is that singer from Thursday is he a dick? I was talking to his keyboard player, and he goes, I'll ask him. I said, he sees me, he avoids me, whatever. And he went up to him, and so he brought him over to our bus one night, and he said, his name's Jeff, and he said, man, I'm so sorry. I'm just really intimidated. I love Helmet, and I just didn't know what to say to you. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And he told me about getting Aftertaste when it came out, and he and his buddies worked at the gas station in Jersey, and they decided to drop acid at work that night and play Aftertaste all night. And one of the funniest stories ever. And he said we had a bad acid trip, and Aftertaste was playing on a loop. We were like pouring gas on on people's cars. It was just a disaster, but kind of funny. And another guy from that tour, I can't remember the name of the band, but he was like, yeah, I remember Aftertaste came out, and I was like, God damn it, I don't like this. I'm really disappointed. He's like, 3 years later, it's my favorite album ever of all time. And I go, good. So you don't, it doesn't have to be immediately. Jimmy Iovine said to me, I expected another Unsung on Betty. And I'm like, what? Like, why would I write the same song again? Like I'm like, no, that was cool and I like it, but you move on, you write something different, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's actually, I mean, that's my favorite album of yours, Aftertaste.
yeah, I really I love it. It's really fun album to play, and the band actually knows Strap It On, Meantime Betty, and Aftertaste. We can play every song on every album. But really struggle with Insatiable. It's so fucking hard to play and sing that weird ass Henry chorus. That chorus Henry and I kind of wrote the chorus together. I had that badass riff, and I didn't know where to go with it. Henry swooped up to what is it, the seventh fret, and that was the key change I needed. It's like a tritone, and he played some weird ass thing only Henry could play, like, left field, rhythmically, like brilliant, but you can't immediately grab onto it. You're like, what? Like, it's like, bam, that kind of thing where it's like going against the grain, 3 against 4 kind of, but not really. He has such a great swing feel. And so playing that, I can lay out on the verse like I do in Unsung or a few other songs. I used to play the verse of Unsung. Now I like just to kind of groove on the vocal. But I still can't. It's so hard to play that because it's not in a regular. It's not a repeated pattern. You know what I mean? It's got that bam 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 upbeat da ba da da ba 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 down. It's just like fuck. It's just so. I have done it live where I just sing, but I it's, if we ever do an Aftertaste tour, which we've had a lot of requests for, maybe in 2000, what would it be? What would the 30th anniversary be? 97. I'm bad at math.
So 27. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Another 7 years, so
you could do it in 2022. That'd be 25 years.
That would be cool. They did the Interscope without even bothering to ask me. Released a Meantime 25th anniversary vinyl, which I was happy about. But I'm like, thanks for asking me. They just sort of did it, yeah, that's a fun record. Was a great. I learned so much too because that's the first record where I truly had a co-producer. With Meantime, it was me and the boys. And with Betty, they were like, well, who's going to produce the record? And I'm like, God, I thought I did a pretty fucking good job. We got a gold record and a Grammy nomination, and I got fucking, Tommy Lee, Nikki Sixx, and Gene Simmons fucking, loving on me. It's like, I think it's a pretty good record, And but they had that record company thing, now we want to have a big hit record, and so I of course write fucking Sam Hell and Henry comes in with fucking like Silver Hawaiian, and I go, yep, I love it. We're gonna turn this into a song, and he had like a 7-minute Meters funk jam on it. I had to kind of carve it down and get it going, but it really threw him for a loop. But yeah, it's funny. Sorry.
You mentioned ACDC earlier, and I'd read before that you're a pretty big fan. Have you heard "Shot in the Dark" yet?
I heard the teaser, the little teaser riff. I haven't heard is the songs released?
Yeah, it came out yesterday. I think actually yesterday morning. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. I'll write that down. I'll get it. The fucking riff is amazing. I was like, are you shitting me? How the fuck? Like, come on, man. Like, and what I heard is that Malcolm had kind of would just hit record and had all this, so they have this kind of backlog of Malcolm riffs. And obviously it's the combination of the brothers because, Angus wrote Highway to Hell, right? And Malcolm wrote Back in Black. I always forget, but, which is just exciting, man. I'm just like, my other guitar player, is like, man, I'm not going to miss him this. He's never seen him. He said, I'm not going to miss him this time. And I'm like, you can't, man. I cried, man, when I saw him. It was the band. It was Brian Johnson, still sounded good, and it was at the LA Forum, and it was fucking incredible. Like, oh god, just absolutely joyous joyous occasion, and just I don't know, man. You can't. It's really funny. We had this I have a group of my East Coast buddies, and we do a house party thing at least once every weekend, sometimes twice. We just have cocktails and sit around and talk guitar, and that's like I say. I'll show them like, look, I got this. I actually came up with a G major 7 arpeggio that has a cool 4-note pattern. And then I showed him the A flat 7 sharp 11 pattern, and we'll do that, and then we'll geek out. We'll talk about stuff, and we're talking about ACDC, and I've had an experience a couple of times. One is a singer that I've worked with who doesn't read a note of music and doesn't know anything about music. She doesn't play an instrument. She's the classic. She's got a beautiful, distinctive voice, but she learns songs off of records. So she does the Julie London version of Cry Me a River, or she does the, a Leonard Cohen song or whatever. She doesn't have any, and she's the classic example of what what the Ann Richter, the great New York session singer, jazz lady who passed away, used to say, "How do you know the singer's at the door? She can't find the key and doesn't know when to come in." And that's my friend Ange. I love her, and she's got a beautiful gift, but she, and so people like that, you got to take what they say with a grain of salt. And she doesn't understand Helmet. Her husband, who's an orchestral guy, scores movies, and it's amazing. He completely gets it, and she thinks we're like fucking knucklehead rock or whatever. And I said, T.M. Stevens, Ange? And she's like, no. I'm like, bass player for Pretenders. He was with James Brown, played with Miles. It's like, you know what he said to me once? He came on the bus and he's like, man, Helmet's like a big ball of ice cream, sweet and delicious, and on the outside, and you dig in and there's spinach inside. And I go, ignorant musicians, people that don't know. And I go, that's the same thing she said about ACDC. She's like, ACDC's your favorite band? I'm like, yeah. Like, if you don't understand magic, if you don't understand the magic of music and groove and how fucking impossible, and I mean impossible, it is to play those songs. Have you ever heard anyone not fucking and just like not have your butthole clench up and just go like, oh God, like just stop. It's the same thing with ZZ. Like, oh yeah, anybody can play that. I'm like, God, you know what? No, you can't. Like, don't please don't do it. And it's I mean, you can pay homage to them and play. When I first moved here and got reamed in my divorce, and Bob Kulick, may he rest in peace, was paying me $1,000 to sing and play these tribute albums. So I did Kiss, Dr. Love. I did Motor Breath from Metallica, and then we did Rock and Roll Damnation. And I'm like, oh man, I was like, God, I need the money, but I'm like, Bob, I'm not going to sing it. I just can't. I mean, Bon, I just can't. Bon, no. I'm like, should I play it? I'm like, okay, $500 if I just play it, and I did, and I kind of regret it because it's just not good. It just doesn't. You just can't get that feel, that vibe, that level of intensity, man. It's just magic, man. There's something about that band that will never be matched. I mean, they're just. I mean, and other Keith Richards I think talked about it. How fucking amazing, because they've done big shows together, and ACDC they just slay you. They just fucking slay. Real guitar players get it. Real musicians get it 100%, and it's thank God for them. I remember the first time I heard Highway to Hell too. It came out in '79, and I was just started college, and I was in Eugene, Oregon, and there was a stereo shop. And, of course, I didn't have two nickels to rub together, but me and my friend Clay Prosai, he said, dude, you have to fucking hear this song, man. And so we went in, he had the record, and they had those giant, back in the late 70s, those gigantic speakers, they're just bigger the better. And so we go in and have one of those sliding glass doors that you can go in the room and close, like you're checking the stereo out to buy. Like, we're going to spend, at the time it was probably like $1,500 for this massive stereo, and we put it on, and I remember like every hair on the back of my neck standing up and like kind of sitting there dumbfounded, like, what is that? Like, what, how do you sing like that? That's the scariest thing I've ever heard in my life. It was so scary, like in an amazing way. Just like, fuck me, man. That is some shit. Oh my God, it's so great. It's just, I don't know. I've played through every song on that album. Just, you just would never play it in front of anybody. Just like, oh, what's he doing here? Oh, cool. What's he doing here? His solos, that Highway to Hell solo, it's like Jerry Lee Lewis. It's pianistic. I mean, it's completely. They're like, oh, pentatonic scales. Yeah. Did you learn the scale? Did you feel how he crosses the bar line? How he's playing these rhythmic these little groovy things up high. These double stops that are. It's not like dun 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 dun. It's not. There's no iambic fucking pentameter in there. You know what I mean? It's like he's grooving so hard, and he's playing these things that you wouldn't expect. If you get in there and really dig into it, it's a great lesson for anyone, man. Yeah, they're fucking. I don't know, man. I can't say enough about them. I worship, adore them. we were supposed to. I was supposed to, when I was a rock star there for a couple of years. They were playing in New Jersey at the Meadowlands or the whatever that's called out there, where I think the New Jersey Nets played, and I got the hook up. Okay, we're gonna go and you're gonna meet them and everything. I was petrified, and then we got that call to do that tour with Nine Inch Nails, and I had to fly to Houston, and so it never happened. I never met him, and still kind of to this day. The tour was great. We had a blast. Nine Inch Nails guys were awesome. It was really fun, but to this day, I'm still kind of like, fuck, man. It's like that was just one of those moments in your life that you kind of wonder. We all have those. I still have my Led Zeppelin ticket from '77, and my parents wouldn't let me go.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I know.
We're putting together an episode, like an Eddie Van Halen tribute episode, and we're getting musicians to, speak about him if you're interested. I know you kind of did a little bit earlier, but if there's anything you want to say as far as like any impact he had on you personally, or just, favorite songs, that kind of thing.
Ain't Talking About Love, the groove on that, it's like this fucking old time rock and roll meets modern something, and it stands the test of time. It's so funny when we were working with Steve Albini over in Chicago at Chicago Recording Company. It's where we recorded the demo of In the Meantime, which became the master on the album, because I always thought the demo was better than what we did in New York at the studio. Then we did a song called Rock Messiah and I think FBLA 2 or something like that. There were a handful of recordings. Anyway, we were staying at Steve's, and we were driving to the studio, and I said something about Panama, and Albini goes, "I don't like bad music," and I was just like, excuse me, like what? And this kind of attitude of our indie world, touch and go, AmRep, SST, Homestead, whatever, that because something had some kind of cock rock attitude to it, that it wasn't cool because David Lee Roth wore like fringe pants. I don't know what people's thinking was. I always base my love or not love of music on the music. I'm a jazz nerd, and I didn't know what they look like on stage. I drop the needle, I listen to it, and I go, yay or nay. And as Duke Ellington said, there are two kinds of music, good and bad. Yeah. And everyone has an opinion. Everyone, anyone can think whatever they want, but people have to realize those are their own biases. And my old drummer didn't like Hendrix, and I gave him Axis Bold as Love, and he's like, "Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I thought." I'm like, people don't realize that that's a shortcoming in their musical fabric. Okay, that's not the fault of Hendrix. That's not the fault of Van Halen. There's no denying the brilliance. Okay, I'm sorry. It's just the first time I heard that, it was the same thing as ACDC, where my jaw dropped, and I'm like, it just had this sound, everything, the way the whole thing was put together, bass, drums, guitar, vocals, that was just completely different from anything that I'd ever heard before. And I realized right then and there, well, I'll never be able to do that. Like it wasn't one of my musical goals to play like Eddie. I have a different thing that's my vocabulary, but I just said, even if I tried for a year and worked on that, I would just never be able to do that. It's so incredibly fluid. It's like water flowing over moss-covered stones in a river. It's beyond the guitar, right? It's music that is like, it takes you to this place. You're in this song, and here's this cool groove, whatever, and all of a sudden this guitar comes in, and it's just like, I want to like describe it as a pterodactyl, like a prehistoric beast or some kind of flock of birds or something. Like, what is that? It's not just a guitar, because it's a magical, fucking amazing thing. And I'm never disparaged something like that I didn't, because I didn't understand it. You know what I mean? And I always say to musicians, you have a shortcoming, and that's fine. You can maintain your stubbornness and not experience this joy, but like I choose to experience this joy. It's like, so yeah, fucking A, man. Like what a dude. Like, it's just the perfect setting. A friend of mine had sent me Hot for Teacher that night when he passed, and I hadn't seen the video in about a million years. It's like maybe the greatest MTV music video ever made.
Yeah.
And that's such a fucking sick fucking song. I mean, just like the drum part, the whole thing, the lyrics, it's just like that's something else, man. That's a great loss. It's just sad. I never got to see him. It's my fault. It's completely my fault. I miss Johnny Cash. I miss John Lee Hooker. I miss Van Halen. And it's my fault completely. I miss Led Zeppelin. It's not my fault. But,
Right. All right, man. We definitely appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Yeah, you guys. Thank you, man. It was fun. Trent and Jason, right?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Cool, man. Well, thanks for having me on. Thanks so much, and stay safe out there. All right.
You do the same. There you go, Paige Hamilton of Helmet. A huge thank you to Brian of Main Road Management. And a massive thank you to Paige Hamilton for taking some time out there to talk to us about all kinds of great stuff. Can't wait to see what Helmet has coming in the future. If you like what you heard there about the Van Halen part of that part of this episode is also included on our Van Halen episode that came out a few weeks ago, the Eddie Van Halen tribute episode, and it also includes 13 other past guests besides Paige Hamilton, like members of Tesla, Devil Driver, Michael Shankerfest, a long list, Motor Sister, Mitch Perry. So dig back through and check that one out. That's episode 292. We've also had episodes with guys like Tommy Victor of Prong. Alan Robert of Life of Agony has been on here twice.
Yes.
Kenny Hickey of Typo Negative has been on here. We've had on Jimmy Bauer of Superjoint, I Hate God, Down. We've had on Kirk Winstein of Down, and of course Crowbar. We've had on Steven Taylor of Superjoint and Phil Anselmo's solo band, The Illegals. We've also had on guys from bands like Guns N' Roses and Kiss, if you ever heard of either of those.
Right.
Yeah, bands like Megadeth, Testament, Death Angel, Avatar, Seven Dust, Def Leppard. A huge long list. So if you dig through everything, you can check us out at thethunderunderground.com. You can listen to the podcast there. You can also see all our socials on there, so click on them all. Give us a like or a follow. Get us on YouTube. Subscribe at The Thunder Underground. We've got a lot of videos on there that are separate from the podcast. And just now, like this week, probably like today, we've got a brand new video about the new Dark Tranquility album that comes out this Friday. Then we'll have one in the next few days about Hatebreed's new album that comes out next Friday, the 27th. We've also had recent videos on Metallica and Alter Bridge, Havoc, Toxic Holocaust, a few other bands. So dig back through all that stuff as well. You can check us out pretty much anywhere podcasts are heard. Anywhere you see us, follow us, like us, share us. All that great stuff helps out. And we greatly appreciate it. Coming up on this podcast, later this week, we're going to have an episode with Mike Spreitzer of Devil Driver. Next week, our milestone 300 episode will be with Severmind. And then we've got episodes forthcoming with Mitch Perry. Eric the Trainer was something we recently recorded. Mike Mostert and Tony Cavino from In Theory. And just this past week, we recorded one with Matthew Nelson of Nelson, which is very cool. I know if you're a Helmet fan, you might be thinking, what the fuck? But I promise you, it's a fun one. We've also got forthcoming ones with Reb Beach of Winger, John Karabi of course, formerly Motley Crue and the Dead Daisies, and a ton of other great stuff.
Union?
Yeah. The Scream.
Right.
And we've got one with Michael from Dark Tranquility coming up. A few others that I'm forgetting, so be on the lookout for all that great stuff. We're pretty much stacked through the year.
Yeah.
One of those episodes next month will be the best of 2020. You'll be like, the best of 2020? Yeah, there's good things that happen this year, mostly new music.
Right.
So we'll talk about that and say, is there something good that happened in 2020? Yeah, it's these albums. So be looking out for that as well. All right. I think that covers it for another one. Once again, a huge thank you to Main Road Management and Paige Hamilton, DEB Concerts, Sunset Tattoo, Med Farm, and Hella Hot Hot Sauce. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.